Hey, Matt Lairden again, Market Mindset Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Today is really cool for two reasons. One, I'm rocking it double wins or not. Haven't done this in 20, 25 years. Only took me about, say 45 minutes in front of the mirror with 8 different YouTube videos. Remember, if you're going to do a double wins or tie, make sure you have a spread collar. Joking aside, today we have Dan Murphy, and he and his wife have taken a challenge that they've had in their personal life and turned it into an opportunity to be of service to others, as well as create financial security for their family. He's located a little bit northwest of Boston, Massachusetts. He's got an incredible online resource, a school via Skool, Skool. It's called the Real Estate Goldmine. Highly encourage you to take a look at it if you're a real estate investor looking to get into wholesaling. As a real estate professional, it's not going to be free forever. And I think at any dollar point, any entry point where you'd have to pay, still worth it 100%. Take advantage of it while you can. Really enjoyed having a chance to spend some quality time with Dan Murphy. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hey, it's Matt Lairden again with you with the Market Mindset Podcast. And sometimes you meet people, and Facebook's an amazing thing. We have Dan Murphy today, and he is the owner of New Life LLCs out of Burlington, Massachusetts. He's just launching a very fascinating, intriguing school community. That's Skool. It's called Real Estate Goldmine, and he's in a niche in real estate that is near and dear to me personally for a lot of reasons. But Dan, I just want to welcome you. Thank you for coming on, sharing your story. We're going to get into that a little bit, but introduce yourself to everyone here. I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be on today.
No problem. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah. Like he said, I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts area. My family and also my wife's family, as we'll get into, was affected by substance abuse. When it comes to being a drug addict, so to speak, we were the real deal, putting needles in our arm, fentanyl, meth, the real hardcore drugs out there. I grew up in a good family. We didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't need for anything. And we just struggled with it. The Massachusetts area, I don't know how familiar people are, but there's a city out here called Lawrence, Massachusetts, and Lowell, Massachusetts. It's one of the bigger drug hubs, especially with opiates. So fentanyl in the United States. And I grew up in the suburbs right around there. So when the oxycodone pills kind of hit the streets, I'm 32 years old. So I wasn't in the original, when like Purdue Pharma started really pushing these drugs. I wasn't part of that craze, but I was definitely the result of that craze in 2012, 13, 14. Got hooked on prescription opioids. And then by the time 2016, 17, the pills had already ruined my life. So switching over to heroin and fentanyl, it wasn't a hard choice to make at that point,
Right.
So we got affected by that. And then, through that, I lived in sober living homes. I've been to drug treatment centers, detoxes, many of them. I met my wife. Her father-in-law owns quite a bit of real estate. And then we kind of saw an opportunity to help sober living operators expand. And that's how I got into this space in the real estate market. And it's a pretty cool, wild story.
Yeah, no, I love it. I can't wait. Thank you for sharing that. I know I'm in Long Beach, California, and I'm involved in the recovery community, the homeless community, food scarcity community. It's near and dear to me personally, and I saw the opioid crisis firsthand in the Purdue Pharma, and we've seen the shows, talk about these pill doctors. There's one out here that's doing 32 years of life because she was just writing scripts, blankly, and it killed a lot, killed a lot of people. One thing that I found fascinating is I dug into that community, pretty deeply because it's affected friends and family. Was that you could get an oxycodone for 25, or you can go get brown or tar, or heroin on the street for a quarter of the price.
Yeah.
And it's been a boon for that industry. I mean, the street drugs. And then I got my pulse on it because I'm in the community a lot, and I hear that they're spraying weed, pot with fentanyl. They're putting it in every other possible drug to get that addictive effect. But anyway, let's not sidetrack too much. But thank you for sharing your story. For people out there that are might be going through this, tell me about your journey as you sort of transitioned out of that lifestyle into this healthy, amazing lifestyle with a beautiful wife.
Yeah. So the story started when I finally got sober. I was at the Process Recovery Center in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I met this girl named Michaela, who's now my wife. We got kicked out. So, this whole journey started with me sneaking into the women's sober house and hanging out. We'll just say that. And then I got caught and we got booted out. From there, I started hanging out with her. I met her family. From that day forward, I never touched drugs again. She continued to struggle. So, I ended up visiting her in prison. She violated probation. She came
Okay.
from a really good family.
Right.
She's in there with the Brockton baby killer, which is someone in
Oh,
Massachusetts
geez.
who murdered her 4 children, right? So,
Right.
it was a real wake up call for her. But what I thought was interesting is her parents owned quite a bit of real estate, like
Okay.
a few hundred units. And what really brought me purpose in as a man and helped me stay sober was they were kind of looking to me like, how can we help? Because
Wow.
I knew how to help. I knew how to not enable and do those things.
Yes.
And I could see these really successful people who had a life that I wanted looking at me like, what do I do? And I realized, oh my God, the worst thing in my life, which is being a drug addict, is
Yeah.
helping me bring value to them, which created purpose. Now, for anyone watching this who has a loved one suffering from drugs and alcohol, I do not recommend they just start dating some random girl in drug treatment. It's not, it worked out for us, but that's how that all started. And yeah, it's sort of, she ended up getting sober as well. And we're kind of living happily ever after. But it was a wild ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've heard it and experienced, to keep it, you got to give it away. And the best thing to do is help someone else because it gets you out of self. And I know that firsthand. It's helped a lot of people I know, myself included, in this journey. So we met through Facebook. I saw this incredible rebuild that you did. Tell me about the new sober living slash treatment slash rehabilitation facility that you booked or you built.
Yeah, so
Talk
that
about
property
that.
we bought for cheap for 250,000. I've always been involved or wanted to be involved in the niche real estate space. So I bought a lot of traditional regular residential real estate, but then once COVID hit and prices started going through the roof, especially in the Boston area, things are very expensive with interest rates. I thought, this congregate living, buying a property where you can put a lot of people in it, just from a cash flow perspective, it sounded good. Now,
Right.
rooming houses are very difficult. They're basically sober living with no rules. So if you think about it,
Yeah.
but that being said, it was a great deal. It was 12,000 square feet. We got it for cheap. We fixed it up. We turned it. We had a lot of people living in there. I reached out to a nonprofit company out of Gardner, Massachusetts, who runs treatment centers and other sober living and stuff like that. Had them take a look at the building. They said, we're not interested now. Call me in a year. Well, I called them in a year and they said, all right, we think we got the funding and we want to do it. So I worked with their team to basically come up with a plan for construction because they needed to get licensed by the state of Massachusetts. So that was an $800,000 build out. I had to vacate the property. Out of the 24 tenants we had to displace, we were able to move 20 of them into other apartments we had in our portfolio. So we were really proud of that. No one really got kicked out on the street. And once the build out was done, yeah, they're running a 32-bed women's residential treatment center. 4 of the beds are designated for women who either have children under 12 months or are pregnant. And from the real estate side, they're paying me $25,000 a month. So it was an incredibly successful deal in terms of money, which is always great. And we can talk about that. I'm sure some of your audience will be interested in that. But
Right.
also it does some really good for the community. So it was cool.
Right. No, but the leap of faith, I mean, as I remember reading, about 250 for the building, but you really had to sort of reach deep with some courage to do an $800,000 build out. I mean,
Yeah.
what gave you the confidence that this was going to work? Was it the contract that helped you get the loan at the bank to do that? I mean,
Yeah.
you're putting it all out there. You're putting it all on the line with an $800,000 build out, but the 12,000 square feet building's amazing.
Yeah, it was the company that I'm working with. It's been around for 70 years.
Okay.
I was able to meet their vice president and their CEO and have conversations with them.
Right.
You're right though. There it was a leap of faith because what I did was once I got the letter of intent saying, "Hey, this is going to be a 15-year lease for $25,000 a month." When I took that combined with the construction plans to Athol Savings Bank, they looked at the strength of the LOI. They looked at the strength of the tenant, who's been around 70 something years. They
Right.
saw how it's funded. They collect, the women who are in this home, they are funded by Mass Health, so it's state funded.
Right.
right? And they came out and did a commercial appraisal with the existing property mixed with the LOI, and it appraised at $1.6 million before doing anything. So I was able to pull out the money in the build out and then some if I wanted to.
Right.
I still did take that leap of faith, but that's the game.
Yeah. Well, and the credit quality of your tenant is phenomenal. 70 years helps. And yeah, I mean that yeah, just congratulations. I mean, stick to what you know. There's riches and niches, as we like to say. And you're being of service. The funds are there. The state, I mean, I'd like to see more funds dedicated to helping people out like this. And obviously, it's a testament. We all have gotten our help and our foothold in sobriety one way or another. And, again, they say be careful, you know, meeting someone in a sobriety living or new to recovery, but that they look to you and your leadership, that family look to you and your leadership to help them out is fascinating. So, do you have eyes on more of these, or what's your next move in the real estate genre as it relates to this industry?
Sure. So I own quite a few deals. And when I say similar, I mean, and they're in the behavioral health space or the substance abuse space, but mostly it's sober living. So basically, on the when someone gets sober, you go to drug detox where you're withdrawing, super, medically assisted, right? So you got
Right,
doctors, physicians, and then you go to a 30-day program, which is some sort of residential where you live there for 30 days. Those are all funded by insurance. And then you can switch over to sober living. What's really kind of messed up here is in our country is detox is very expensive, inpatient's very expensive, and then they just boot you out on the street and they go,
right.
let's go back to your regular life. Recreating the type of deal that I did with this treatment center is possible, but it's very difficult with zoning. So this particular company
Oh,
was a nonprofit, so they just were exempt from all the zonings. The stars all aligned. Also, when you start getting into the treatment center business or detoxes, now you're competing with the hedge funds and the private equity. So I was right place, right time. However, there are a lot of just mom and pop shops or other treatment centers who they already have their cash cow, which is the treatment center, and now they just need a house to put people in, or they have a outpatient program and they need housing for the clients to sleep in where they can pick them up on a bus every day and then bus them to their outpatient program. Because once you mix actually residential, like living on site and treating on site, the zoning and the money explodes. That's how I was able to make so much money doing it, but it's difficult to recreate. So I just started working with any state certified sober living operator where there's much less regulation and overhead. And
right.
I just said, hey, if you want to expand your business, I'll buy you a property and lease it back to you. Now, because you can get more clients in the house, we're able to, get much better returns compared to traditional regular residential real estate. And
Right.
I work hand in hand with the operator to expand because I know the business. I'm passionate about it. I'll make the house weird. I've ripped in two family properties. I've ripped one of the kitchens out to help serve more clients.
Yeah.
But for that, we get paid for it, so to speak. And that has worked really well because I'm creating really strong commercial leases out of anything, out of
Yeah.
your next door neighbor's house. It's
Right.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, a good friend of mine, his name's Jeff. He's with, a similar an organization does the same thing. And, he goes in there and he demos walls and creates space utilization, and I mean, on average, how many beds per room are you putting? Two beds, three beds per room? I mean,
Yeah, I'd say on average it's two. There's
okay.
all guidelines in different states. Most of them are pretty similar. So you need at least 70 square feet, which is very reasonable. It's actually small for
Right.
one person. And then you need an additional 50 square feet per additional guest. So if you have a 120 square foot room, 10 by 12, you can put two people in there.
Yeah.
Massachusetts doesn't get down with the whole let's stuff bunk beds in and all that. We're not playing that game.
Right.
You want to serve the clients. There's money to be made. You want to make money. The bills need to be paid because there is some regulation with life safety code, sprinkler systems, and fire alarms. I don't want to make it sound like this is easy, but
No.
it's extremely doable, especially in a market where there's so much pent up capital and people can't figure out what to do with it.
Right. Right. And then the fact that I had no idea hedge funds were getting into that. How do you keep the culture inside a house? I mean, I've witnessed it where, I've seen a whole sober living go to quote pot per se because you bring one or two bad apples in, and it's such a delicate mindset, and with the people that are in recovery, new to sobriety. Do you have house managers in each one, or are they self you sort of let them self-manage themselves?
Yeah, so every single sober house is going to have a house manager. Some have two, some have three, depending on the size of the house. Now, what's unique about my business is I don't actually run the houses at all. I just buy the house and lease to the operators. So I have a plethora of operators you could eventually speak to, and they can kind of talk to exactly how they build the
No, that's
in
fine.
their house. But at the same time, obviously, I'm familiar with it because I talk to them. But yes, it's typically 1 to 2 house managers, and then you have a set of rules and guidelines. When I lived in sober living, there was always a big whiteboard on the wall. They got chores that people need to do,
Right.
and and that's what's so interesting is when you lease to sober living, the average investor goes, I don't want my house filled with drug addicts. I'm not going to touch that. And I always say, imagine if you could rent to Section 8 tenants and then make a rule that no overnight guests. You have to be home by 11 p.m. No drugs or alcohol. If you don't get along with the other tenants, the average eviction in a sober house is 1 hour.
What? Well, hey, yeah, but you're also giving them a pathway to re-enter, and for the operator. I know in the where I am, the Long Beach area, it's anywhere from $550 to $700. You got two to a room. It's big. But to go get a studio apartment in Long Beach is a minimum 1,200-1,300 bucks. So
Yeah.
it's affordable, and you're helping people. You got a community within the organization, but I like the fact that you're a landlord, and you're building out these properties, and you're securing these leases for the residential. I don't know. If you had a 5 bedroom, that you're leasing out, are you doing that as sort of a single tenant, triple net lease type of a property?
Yeah, we'll do it with single family homes. We'll do it with multifamily homes. Licensed boarding houses are the best in terms of zoning. You already kind of beat all the zoning. A lot of them already have sprinkler systems in it. But that being said, you can take any home and make it this way. Now, cities can come in and they can stomp their feet if neighbors are upset. But the reality is, recovery home is protected by the Federal Fair Housing Act of 1988, so they are considered people with a disability. Yep. That being said, the city can flex their discriminatory muscles and make this more difficult for you. But I've signed settlements with cities where they had to write me checks for $40,000 because they said, no, you can't do this, and they're just wrong.
Right.
That being said, that's why it's important to do it the right way. Be cognizant of the neighborhood that you're in. Don't put a 40-bed house in a neighborhood. It needs to make sense.
Yeah.
But I've never had a neighbor once complain about any of the open houses. The neighbors only complain about the idea. They think that it's going to become. I've gone to zoning meetings and people are like, "Are my children going to be safe?" It's like, yeah, no offense, but the people who are in these sober houses are your neighbors, and hopefully, I pray that it doesn't happen to you, but potentially your children. Like these aren't just these scumbag people,
No, they're not.
Everybody's hurting.
No, I know. I have a friend who operates a couple of them, and it's the tenants for the most part have a service attitude, servant mindset, and they keep the place front. They want to be proud of where they live. They're in this new process of living, this new challenge of living, and they take pride. They've got some rules, and just like you said, a 1 hour eviction. You test positive and not sharing it with someone, you're out. If you do anything dumb, you're out. You have overnight guests, you're out. These are almost, the ideal, neighbors, because they want to stay where they are, and of course, you're gonna have a few bad apples in the. What type of cap rates are you looking at, if you don't mind me asking? Are you looking on a cash return when you buy a place and turn it and fix it up? Are you looking at cash on cash? Are you buying these properties outright? What type of return are you looking at?
We typically will do I'll borrow money from lenders, and then refi in 12 months or 12 to 14 months with but yeah, so it's sort of infinite cash on cash return because the commercial leases are so strong and the return is so strong. I can pull my money out of every single deal pretty much. Yeah. That being said, to make it easy, if you're putting 20% down, like I did one in Claremont, New Hampshire, it was $225,000. I put $64,000 of my own money down, conventional. With the $3,900 a month triple net lease, the cash on cash return is like 50%. Yeah. And I'm not even running it.
Right. No, it's a good business model. You're being a service. Let's dive into this new community on Skool. What are you doing there with your the Real Estate Goldmine for all of us real estate investors out there?
It's interesting. It's a really, really cool opportunity for you investors out there who want to come learn, because although I'll admit I'm an expert in this field and I know what I'm talking about, I'm new to the idea of teaching, and I am so afraid of charging people money and not providing value that I'm doing a lot of this for free right now. And I've only been doing it a few days. I already have someone I met in Ohio that's putting an offer in on a house. I had a free Zoom call yesterday and people were like, this is awesome. You can see the Skool community. So there's going to be an avenue to eventually, make money doing this, but also I want to be able to partner with people. I want investors to see this and be like, hey, I don't want to run any of these houses. I don't want to own them, but I think this kid knows what he's doing. He's backed.
Yeah.
His father-in-law owns a lot of property. So I'm just so new in it that come take advantage of the fact that maybe I'm not smart enough to start charging a bunch of money for this, because I just really enjoy talking about it. Like, you waking up and doing a podcast with you, it's like Christmas morning for me. I love talking about this stuff.
Well, you see it, you feel it, you're passionate about it, and I mean, it's called imposter syndrome. There's a term for it where we know a lot, but when we go out and share it, we feel like we're not as it's not as smart as we actually give us. And then people like me come to you and I'm like, holy man, we talk cash on cash returns. We talk demographics. We're talking, cash flow, all the state agencies that are involved. I mean, you know what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about, but I think we all deal with it, that imposter syndrome. But, I love that you're getting out there. Hey, anyone out there watching right now, jump on this. I joined. It's fascinating to me already. You just started a couple of days ago and I see your membership's growing and growing. So how do we find it? If we had to go online, what do we do?
So I'll put my Instagram link. I'm Daniel Michael Murphy on Instagram.
Okay.
I'm trying to grow that. That's the easiest way to drive traffic organically, is through things like Instagram. If you obviously Googled school.com/real estate goldmine, it's going to pop up as well. But there's only so many people you can help, right? Because this isn't like where I'm starting a phone flipping business. I want to be able to work directly with people. So right now, while it's free, I want to keep growing it, but I want to be able to give people the attention they need, because can I help somebody buy a property for $250,000, $300,000, depending on where they live, and lease it for $5,000 or $6,000 a month and get incredible? I can 100% do that for you, but there's only so many people I can help, right? So I want to kind of keep it small niche, and eventually when this thing is paid, or I'm not in the business of taking money from people who realistically aren't in a position to deal with it, or the potential headaches. Because if a city comes in and wants to tussle, I'll help you beat them easily. But it's gonna be time consuming, and I don't ever want you made it sound like this was easy.
Right. Well, in that vein, I have an online course. It's about 1031 exchanges, and I work with real estate broker owners, help recruit, retain. But I'm telling you, when I first rolled the course out, we tried all these different pricing models, and the people who invested in the lower price model never executed, never followed through. They got it, they paid for it, they put it in their drawer, they didn't ever go on. They checked in a couple times. But when we raised the price, the perceived value increased dramatically, and all of a sudden we have all these certificated 1031 specialists out there who are going through the course, realizing the value. But I got more traction, more interest, more follow through, more execution by these real estate agents when they invested a little bit more in themselves. So it's worthwhile, and it's an extremely niche business. You're being of service, you're helping others. I love the fact that you're not managing themselves. You are just, you're sort of, in this, that you have a single tenant triple net lease. That's no different than, investor buying you own a 7-Eleven building or an advanced auto parts building. You have zero hands-on. Are they pure triple net lease properties where they handle all the maintenance, everything? Do you have any landlord responsibilities when you lease these properties out?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, some of the deals are different. Like the first deal we ever did, as you'll see on my Skool community, I had the utilities included. Now I added into the lease, so we made out on that. But then we started learning, like, the enterprise value is going to be bigger the less the responsibility is, because no hedge fund or private equity is going to want to buy it and be like, wait, I got to pay the the national grid bill on this one property. Like they don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
That being said, as well, when you're working with traditional sober living operators, they haven't been around 70 years. They're not CVS. There's definitely a lot more value in owning a CVS. I won't deny that, but the returns on this are extremely, extremely high. And there have been times where I look and the taxes are, say, $350 a month for the property. I'll ask the operator, do you want this price or this price? Because sometimes I'd almost rather just get the money monthly from them, let them go on auto pay, than boom, like in New Hampshire, I get hit bi-yearly. So I just get hit with this huge tax bill. I don't want to be chasing anyone for money.
Right.
So as far as responsibility of the house go, the roof, the heating system, and some of the major plumbing I always own. And that's probably my own paranoia, because I don't want a roof to be leaking and them to ignore it. I don't want and I'm working with small business here. I'm not working with the big businesses.
Yeah. Agreed. So on Instagram, and I'll, at the end of this, when we close it down, I'll have all your contact information. But your Instagram is, again, what? Daniel
Michael Murphy. Easy name to spell. It's a boring name.
Right. A little Irish there.
Little Irish. It's everything. It's spelled exactly how you'd imagine.
I love it. What do you got going on in sports there in Massachusetts? I mean, are you a Patriots guy? Or, I mean, what's going on?
Devastating. The Celtics just won. We grew up winning everything.
I know.
And it's devastating. Like watching the Patriots at 1-5. It's like, I'm done. I'm not even watching. We're spoiled like that. I'm not watching football. Like you get together once a week to watch your team lose. Like we went what? we were 12-4 every year for 20 years minimum.
I know. And then your Celtics are good. I mean, I'm a Laker guy, so I look back at those rivalries with Bird and Magic and all that. And then, baseball, you got, I mean, it's a sports town. It's amazing. You got winter weather coming up. Tell us about your community, your town, what's going on there. If we went there to your town, what would be the highlights? What's one restaurant you'd suggest we go to?
Wow, but it's interesting you say that, because Burlington, Massachusetts has a lot going on. It's almost like, so I'm 10, 15 miles north of Boston, but It's almost like a mini Boston. There's tons of them. Cafe Escadrille, Burton's is a good restaurant. They have Capitol Grill here. I don't know if Capitol Grill is national. They're all over New England, though.
We love Capitol Grill is a great restaurant. And considering it's a chain, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, Burlington's expensive, but I can't leave now because, like, my wife, and Lifetime Fitness is like one of the best gyms in the world. Yeah, like I joined all that, and I'm like, oh, it's like a mortgage, but I can't take that away from my wife and kids. They love it.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your journey in recovery, how you're helping others. Experience, strength, and hope, as they say, and being of service, helping others. I mean, what amazing that you were able to help out your wife, with the amount of sobriety that you had at that time. And I tell you, amazing things happen when people get sober. And it's I don't care what your drug of choice is, right? It could be alcohol, for the alcoholic, your drug dealer's on every corner, they say, right? But it doesn't matter what it is. But the sobriety journey's tough, but I'll tell you, it is so worth it. It's just, I've seen amazing things happen to people, and it's literally sometimes it's 1 hour, 1 day, at a time. But you're a testament to that. Daniel Michael Murphy at Instagram. I'll put your Skool information up there, sort of as a donut at the end. I appreciate you, Dan. Thank you for jumping on this so quick. We connected on Facebook. I go, this is something that, both from a motivational standpoint, if someone's thinking about stepping into the world of sobriety, here's a perfect example of what can happen. And then from a real estate perspective, how you're helping out, you're creating win-win situations. So thank you for jumping on this so quick. I can't wait to stay in contact with you, see where things go in the future. We'll circle up in a couple months, see how things are going.
Anytime. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
I really appreciate it, Dan. Thank you so much. Take care.